Welcome back to The Bible is Art, where we explore the literary artistry of the Bible. And this week, we're going to look at the symbolism, the meaning in Deuteronomy 26, a place that you might not think there's going to be symbolism there. So in Deuteronomy chapter 26, what's fascinating about this passage is that it's going to be kind of like a good practice for learning to read and to notice things well, because it's a more sort of like normal text. There's nothing that's sort of like particularly jumps out as sort of like strange or like calling for symbolism or deep meaning. So this is a good practice. So let's jump over there. When you come into the land the Lord your God has given you for an inheritance and have taken possession of it and live in it, you shall take some of the first of all the fruit of the ground which you've harvested from your land and that the Lord your God has given you, and you shall put it in a basket. And you shall go to the places the Lord your God will choose to make his name dwell there. And you shall go to the priest who's in the office at that time and say to him, I declare today that the Lord your God, that I have come into the land that the Lord swore to our fathers to give us. Then the priest shall take the basket from your hand, set it down before the altar of the Lord your God, and you shall make response before the Lord your God. A wandering Aramean was my father, and he went down into Egypt and sojourned there, few in number, and there he became a nation, great and mighty and populous, and the Egyptian treated us harshly and humiliated us and laid on us hard labor. Then we cried out to the Lord, the God of our fathers, and the Lord heard our voice and saw our affliction, our toil, and our oppression, and the Lord brought us out of Egypt with mighty hand and outstretched arm, with great deeds of terror and signs and wonders, and he brought us into a place and gave us this land flowing with milk and honey. And behold, now I bring the first fruits of the ground, which you, O Lord, have given me, and you shall set it before the Lord your God and worship before the Lord your God, and you shall rejoice in all the good that the Lord your God has given to you in your house, you and the Levite and the sojourner who is among you. Okay, so what's particularly fascinating about this? Well, let's sort of think about the broad architecture of this. What is happening? So you've been working and you've got your first fruit, and you're supposed to take that, put it in a basket, bring it on a journey down to the tabernacle or temple and to the altar there, and then you're supposed to perform this liturgy. You're supposed to give this sacrifice and say this speech, right? Okay, so that's the sort of like whole architecture. So let's start thinking about the symbolism. So first we got to understand, what is an altar? Now, an altar is a symbolic mountain. So it's a pile of rocks later. That's first what it is in like Abraham's time. And then you get down to when you have the tabernacle and the temple, and it's going to be more stylized, but it's just a symbolic mountain. And the purpose of altars is that you are saying, I want to go back to there. So Abraham is the one who sets up these altars in the land, and you're saying, I want to go back to the mountain. So, well, what mountain? Well, Mount Eden. Okay, how do we know it's a mountain? Well, we know two ways. One is that the rivers there flow down off of it. And also in Ezekiel chapter 29, it explicitly describes Eden as a mountain. So it's Mount Eden. It's a mini Mount Eden, okay? What's on top of it? Well, you have fire. You get animals burned up. What's on the mountain? You have angels with a fiery sword. And so what this is saying, I want to go back to this mountain, but I can't go back there until God calls me back. So in the meantime, I'm going to make these little memorials. So it's like when a soldier goes off to war and he takes a photo of his beloved, his wife, and he's saying, I can't wait to get back to her. I have this little token until I can go. So it's this miniature mountain. And so what's happening is this Israelite is taking, and notice what the text says, he's taking fruit. Now, I know this is an idiom for whatever art agricultural product he has, but the text uses fruit, okay? And so he's taking fruit. Think about those words. Have we ever heard the phrase taking fruit before? Yes, this is a replay of Genesis that's happening, but now in a redemptive mode. So you're supposed to take some of this fruit. You're supposed to go on a journey, go on a mountain, and give it to God. That's the symbolism that's happening here. So notice what it is. In the beginning, we took the fruit and we took it from God. Now we're giving it back to God on this mountain right here. And this is something that God requires us to do. Now, it's also fascinating that in this, you have this long verbal liturgy. Now, this is very unique, and this is one of these aspects where you gotta train yourself in being able to see things that are that you may have slipped past. Because what's interesting about this? Well, if you think about through the whole law, there's very, very little verbal liturgical requirements. Most of them are practical, they're action requirements. Do this with the animal, bring it here, cut it here, do this with the blood, do this many times. But there's very little requirements for ritual and liturgical action that's verbal. That is, say this, say this, say this. And so you have the longest verbal liturgical requirement here. Why? Well, I think maybe because there's something that's characteristic about Adam in Genesis 3, and that is that he's silent. He's given the job to protect this garden. Then the snake comes up to his wife, starts talking to him, which is the craziest thing in the world, and is telling him and is insinuating things that's clearly wrong, and he is silent. He doesn't say anything. So in response, in this reversal of that action, he says, I'm going to require you to use these words, and it's to remember God and the things that he has done, right? That's the opposite of what Adam did. Adam did not remember, and he fell into sin in that. So now I want you to remember. Every year, the Israelite was required to rehearse this liturgical drama of the reversal of Eden. Bring your fruit to God and give it to God. This was supposed to form the Israelites' life. And that, my friends, is why the Bible is art. Thanks so much for checking out the video. I really do appreciate it. If you'd like to support the channel, you can do so at patreon.com/thebibleisart. Please leave your comments below, and I'll see you in the next video.